Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. You are listening to a podcast by Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. If you enjoy Faith Over Breakfast, we encourage you to rate it on the Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. My name is Andy Littleton from a church called Mission Church in Tucson, Arizona, and I am here with Eric.
Hey, Andy from Mission. I got a question for you.
What's that?
I heard that my saxophone player played at your church.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a great crossover.
Yeah, man.
I need to bring one of your band members over to play at our church.
Go for it.
This exchange that we could work back and forth.
I think it's great. Yeah. That was you just heard about this.
Yeah.
I didn't think to mention it, but yeah.
Do you know what the date was? And is it still online so I can watch it?
Oh, it's still online.
It was in March,
don't remember the date. That sounds right. Yeah.
I went through the March ones. Do you remember who was preaching?
Pretty sure me, but I'm not actually 100%. I was there.
Okay.
I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone should go back and watch that.
Yeah. So, it's a true becoming a sister church.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Love it. Well, today's topic, forgiveness. Eric, shot over just a good old section of Scripture, Ephesians 4, and I think we had a great conversation about it.
Yep. I think you'll enjoy thinking about forgiveness.
So, thanks for tuning in.
Awesome.
That he was right. Check, 1, 2. So, what did I do?
I don't know.
Because you want to talk about forgiveness, I'm assuming
no,
you have a motive. There's something, Eric.
I have no motive.
What did I do?
I was looking at the subjects of the Faith Over Breakfast, and I thought, you know what?
Never talking about forgiveness.
It's sometimes a little pastory. I know it's in the sense of talking shop on air is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, maybe we could be of a benefit to people.
That feels
talk about forgiveness
like a stretch, but we can try.
Know. We can try to be a benefit to somebody.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I was intrigued. I had a good conversation, just the guy over coffee, more about the theoretical side
of forgiveness
the last week.
Yeah.
And then there's always all the things that are still floating out there. Maybe forgiven. Did we forgive that or not?
Right.
How do you know? Did we forgive enough and need to do some more?
Do some more forgiving.
What's the relationship between forgiving and reconciling? Are they one and the same?
Yeah.
Do two parties have to participate, or is it enough for one? What motive is it? Is it because you do it because of what it does? Maybe it doesn't fix things for them. It does things for you. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Or how much is it supposed to cost you? Is it enough to say it?
I forgive you.
Thanks.
For whatever it is.
What a blanket
forgiveness.
There's got to be.
All yours.
I'm sure there are a lot of things.
I forgive it. It's all forgiven.
Yeah, cool.
Everything you ever said about me that I don't know you said about me, I forgive you if it wasn't good.
Until I say the thing that I've said to you before that's annoyed you and you haven't really processed it, but you get annoyed again. And then I say, oh, well, you didn't forgive me. I thought you.
That's right.
I thought we were
forgiven.
And then there's the conversation I had years ago at Raging Sage that I will always remember because I understand it very well, which was where a guy saw me with my Bible out and he said, ugh. And I said, oh, I take it you're not a practicing Christian. And he said, no. I said, well, what happened there? And he said, this is like the quickest, really deep conversation, right? He said, my sister is the most miserable person in our family. and she has become a Christian, and that is her new trump card to not be held responsible for anything she does. I'm forgiven.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've heard you tell me this story before.
I've told it before.
But it's been a while.
Yeah. So there you go. I've put a lot of ingredients in a soup.
You have. So let me read out loud what I sent you so that we can...
excerpt from a book by Preston Sprinkle.
Yes. Paul. In his 4th chapter to the Ephesians, starting at verse 31. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as types of evil behavior, things that need to be forgiven. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you.
And then he turned to Peter and said, you are a massive hypocrite. You say you accept the Gentiles, but you don't eat with them. And I called him out to his face.
That's right. That's in Galatians, though.
I know. But the things to hold it. So was that?
Well,
clamor, anger.
Slander.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should first have a working definition of forgiveness. What is your working definition of forgiveness? I'll give you my working definition of forgiveness.
Well, last week at our church, we talked mercy, and I think forgiveness can be included, or it's often listed subsequent to or connected to mercy.
Mm-hmm.
This is me stalling, by the way. So I came up with my own definition of mercy without looking anything up.
Okay.
But it was something like withholding the fullest extent of what someone ought to receive for what they've done.
Sure.
Out of the hopes that there could be some redemption or restoration in the future. So, mercy doesn't mean no justice, but its fullest extent. I tend to think of forgiveness as bearing the cost of what someone else has done and not requiring payment from them anymore. Something like that.
Yeah, I like that. I think I would say that would be my definition, except that I would add that some of forgiveness is giving up what I believe to be my right to exact punishment on you.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of adding just a little bit of a nuance to what you were saying.
Totally.
I think...
I think my right is a good way to say that, because you do have the right.
As a wronged party.
Yeah.
And I think, too, I would agree with you. Mercy is at the core of forgiveness, or it's the foundation, because even the text said we forgive because we are forgiven, and that forgivenness comes from the cross, which is the ultimate example of God's act of mercy. And so I think so I think it's all those questions are really, when we talk about forgiveness, and we could talk about actual situations, but I think the hard part for people is to give up what they believe is right or what is just to happen. Like, justice, oddly enough, gets in the way.
Yes.
And so
but you need, if you do not understand what's just, you can't really forgive.
This is true.
So it gets in the way in that our demand, not that it happen,
right, but
our demand that we get to govern it.
Yes. And so when we lose kind of the ability to say exact punishment and justice, we move to the earlier things in the verse. In verse 31, slander, anger, like evil behavior even becomes our way of exacting that justice and not forgiving.
Yes.
So it's really hard then.
Clamor. Isn't that wasn't, when I read it, sorry, I just wanted to note, good. That's an English word, right? But that was one that stuck out to me. It's like, when I think of anger, I think I kind of get what that is like, and slander is speaking ill about the other person. Clamor. What do you think
clamor. Well, to clamor for something is to like make loud noises, and even it has a feel of more than one person making a noise to get something, like the pressure to make a clamor about something. I don't know.
There arose such a clamor.
There arose such a clamor. Yeah.
Feels like Santa Claus trying to get a ladder on a house.
Yeah, it's a noise of sorts. So did you look it up?
No, I actually probably will right now. But I was thinking, what comes to my mind, I didn't think of a noise. I thought of being in a hectic state.
I like that. Yeah. That would be a clamor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, keep going. I am gonna.
Yeah, you should
check out clamor.
Look it up. No, I think the hard part I was thinking right before you interrupted me, and I have to now forgive you for that.
I'm sorry.
It's being in the.
Do you believe me?
Being in the presence of someone who has wounded you, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Like in a friendship, like you interrupting me in a podcast, there's no need for forgiveness because you haven't wounded me, and there's no ill will in that. It's just a way of being together, and we have that already established in our friendship. But when you wound me, and that wound is real, and it has a deep personal impact on me, or has some kind of impact on me, it's hard to be in your presence when I've given up my right for justice and given that to God, who paid the price for your sin.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in just regular relationship, like forgiveness just has to be a constant practice, and it's difficult the more disconnected you are from Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have an awareness of your own need for forgiveness and the way that you go around wronging people and need their deserve their justice at some level, I think that's an important part of things. I'm curious, it would be interesting to have a bit of a conversation about being hurt or wounded in ways where you can't be in relationship.
Okay.
Right. So what does reconciliation look like? What are boundaries look like? Can you forgive people who have wounded you, who you're never really going to be in relationship, can't be in relationship with them anymore?
I think those are things that people are trying to sort.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I definitely have had plenty of examples of trying to sort that. Do you want the words?
Yeah, let's go for clamor.
Well, I'm going to go all the way. Bitterness.
Okay.
This would be, grudges, a cynical attitude toward the person. Wrath. This would be, a sudden. A sudden outburst, like something that where essentially there's a very thin line between you being very upset about the situation, something like that. Anger, getting a little more at the grudge, sustained, resentment. Clamor, you're pretty right actually. Where I'm looking, it is has to do with verbal exhibition of the anger. Okay, good. Slander or evil speech, blasphemia. Defamation of character, right? We know that. That one is a little more common.
It's always around, yes.
Malice, good old kakia, from where we get the word caca. Is just general ill will. It is where we get the word. I mean, it's poopy. And that is where you just want inwardly the person not to succeed. You want, or to be not either. I'm probably not to succeed or to have something bad happen to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever felt any of those things, Eric?
Yeah. I've experienced all of those.
Yeah.
I've also practiced all of those.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
So, I mean, obviously, we can't always talk about everything here.
Let's talk about that one time at the Village, Eric.
Yeah.
No, we can't.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to live a life of faith? What does it mean to live as a Catholic Christian? Hi, this is Bishop Kevin Sweeney, host of the podcast Beyond the Beacon. Join me as we unravel and discuss the mysteries of our faith, of the church, of living as Catholic Christians. Be inspired by engaging interviews with priests and seminarians, deacons, religious, women and men who live the life of faith day by day here in our Diocese of Patterson, in food pantries and classrooms and parishes and ministry. How is God working in their lives today? How is God working in our lives? Join me as I ask them and be part of the conversation on Beyond the Beacon. Listen and follow Beyond the Beacon wherever you get your podcasts or watch it on my YouTube channel. Please check the show notes for more details. Thank you and God bless you.
No, but I think, are there parts of your story where you had to choose to forgive and it was really difficult?
Yeah.
And like what process did you have to go through to get there?
Well, I'm not a real steps guy. If I were to write a book on forgiveness, I would not have 5 clean steps.
Forgiveness steps.
Because I don't think any of the stories or situations follow the same trajectory. There's a lot to it. I will tell you this, that I've wrestled through what it really requires, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've wrestled through questions like, so do you just stop telling the story at all? Do you tell it differently? Do you tell it truncated? How do you, what's maybe it would be this, what's the line about being honest about what happened? You call that authenticity or something, and saying, because I'm trying to forgive, what do I do with that? Do I be dishonest or or just say as little as possible?
Right.
Or do I refuse to tell that story anymore? I think I've tried versions of that.
Okay. How much
does
starting with the story of hurt and woundedness?
That's a piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think for me, maybe one of the biggest things is, and this I think for me feels like it always takes a while and always requires usually some form of a time of solitude. But I feel like I have to wrap my mind around what really has happened. What is it exactly that I feel? And that I do not get that information quickly.
Takes some time.
Takes time
to take a deep dive into.
And I find it really hard to walk into even just the inner forgiveness well if I haven't been able to have that time, because I just can't sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
Can't sort it out. That's me. But yeah, I will tell you, I've had plenty of times where the person said, oh, what was I thinking? I'm so sorry. And that's great when that happens. That helps. Or where I've had that clarity. Right?
Sure.
But I think most of the situations that come to mind are ones where that clarity is hard to find. And what do you do with, because you can tell yourself all day, like, I want the best for them and I'm good. But then the next time you hear about it, inwardly you're like, oh, but do I though? Am I good?
Yeah.
And how do you get there?
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of these things, and I think there is always an honesty about your story. Like, I don't think you can stop saying, there's this time on the podcast when Andy interrupted me, and I really felt unheard, and he doesn't, I don't feel heard by Andy, not heard. Like, that's you got not, but again, I have to tell that story with a humility, and I think that's the stance. So always telling my woundedness in a stance of humility, not, I mean, Andy's a what, and he never really listens. He just wants to hear his own voice, and so I never get heard. So I just used all the bitterness, slander,
right,
clamor,
yeah.
so to speak. So I think some of it's for me, it's like, can I tell my wounded story with humility?
Yeah.
And not kind of put myself in the good light, and I got wounded, and it was all about this other person's evil deeds against me.
Yes.
So I think that's one.
I think so too. And one of the things, to the point of the story, it's rare, very rare, I would say, where the thing that deeply hurts or wounds you, where this person has started it, right?
Yeah.
Usually they're tripping a wire or hitting a soft spot that's already there in you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so usually when you're looking at the forgiving of a person, the truth is you're looking at a lot of people who've done, there's like a theme. And a lot of times I think there's some of our feelings in there are actually toward God.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like a lot of times with the inner life and the things that we're invited to practice, we think about, the disciplines are, I need to pray more, I need to read my Bible. A lot of the disciplines is, how do you tell your story? How do I nurture affection for someone? So if someone's hurt me, forgiving them is making a choice to spend some time nurturing an affectionate thoughts and affectionate statements about them, so that my brain can begin to register good emotional experiences of them. And that's so I think it's being able to be humble about the story of my wound, nurturing affection for them. And a lot of times I just imagine myself underneath the cross, mocking God along with them. Yeah. So that's very helpful for me, because then it's not targeted at them. It's like
that when Jesus looks down, you two are doing the same thing.
We're doing the exact same thing. Even though we're mocking each other, basically, we're actually just mocking him together. And he's like, hey, forgive them. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't understand why I'm here.
Yeah.
They don't, but they will. And I think that's, helpful for me in that process.
When Jesus said that, by the way, just to rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Do you think what all did that mean? This is a new thought, but is it just that they didn't know what they were doing to him? How general was it? Like, when I think about how we are living life and how we're responding to other people and situations, and what drives us, which gets at the question of like, what are our real gods and what are we living for? Like, my comprehension of that within myself is very, very weak, right?
Yeah.
And so when you hear him saying that, do you think, I always have thought of it as in he's saying essentially, they don't know that they're crucifying the Son of God who is going to raise again in 3 days, and they just don't really understand the plot line here. Could it be that he's talking way more holistically about they don't know what is at the core of any of what's driving their lives? They don't know what they're doing. They don't.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would add maybe it ties those two together, or maybe it's a third one. I'm usually thinking he's saying, this is this cosmic moment. There's no other moment in the world where you're standing, like God is like dying. I mean, fully God, fully man, right there on the cross. Like he's suffering for the sins, and they're bargaining over things and mocking him.
And I imagine a couple disciples are like mapping out what it's going to look like to take fish to the fish market tomorrow, since this whole thing didn't pan out. And,
right. And those women are trying to figure out how they're going to make sure Jesus makes it to a tomb and isn't mutilated. Yeah.
And John, the young disciple who's sitting there, we always think of him kind of just penitently looking at the cross, but what if he's actually just like scratching in his scalp and looking at the ground going,
what am I going to do with Mary?
Yeah. How do I take care of this old lady?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot going on there. I think all of the things that you said are there. Like it's that play. And then it's also just very human in the sense of just these people in this particular moment have no idea relationally what they're doing to me, like as a person.
That'd be an interesting play or short film.
It would.
Just the moment between when Jesus looks down at them and pronounces, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," that the whole film is in between, just looking at all the different characters and what they could actually be doing.
That's interesting. That makes me think, and this is a total, I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast yet or not, but I was listening to an interview with an author who she wrote a book, and it's 5 minutes on a train station. What do you call it?
Platform.
Platform, yes. Yeah. And the book opens up. It's 5 minutes. One of them will die in 5 minutes, and then the whole book is you trying to figure out which one's going to die and their backstories. And so it would be very interesting to like just have 5 minutes of that moment, but then you're just watching them think about everything and what's happening in their life. All right, we need the funding, man, so we can do this movie.
Yeah, where do people send their donations?
The Forgiveness Movie.
Forgiveness Movie. Move. MOV. I don't know.
Move. Anyway, back to forgiveness. Back to I think the hardest part for me is in places where there's been separation of relationship. So someone has wounded you. You guys haven't had a conversation really to process all of that, and you haven't seen them in a long time.
And what happens when you don't trust them in that conversation?
Right. And then
Okay. Sorry, I just keep injecting stuff.
Well, you bump back into them in
do.
that moment of like, okay, what do I do in this moment? How do I interact with this person?
Yep. Here's an interesting one. What about when you bump into them and it is all just nice formalities?
Yeah.
But like nice, like, well, that was just like a normal, wonderful little conversation like I used to always have with them. But we didn't talk about the thing.
The thing. I think that happens in marriages a lot.
Yeah.
Right? There's a big break in relationship, and then somehow they come back together, but
you just don't talk about the thing.
You just don't talk about the thing.
The thing.
And then it eventually eats you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having way too many spurious ideas about
that's what this podcast
the
is
thing
about.
Signs on the side of the road and sorry, I gotta stop.
The thing. Oh my goodness, this is going.
But if you're not in Arizona, for our listeners in Japan, there's a roadside attraction, very American, outside of our city called the thing.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer, and then you can go see it.
Yes,
at some gas station or something.
Yep. But what are you moving toward forgiveness because you had the nice conversation with your spouse or whatever when you didn't resolve? And do things need to be resolved to be forgiven? I think some people prefer that.
Yes, some people prefer resolution.
I don't think, actually, I think if you need resolution, you're not very into forgiveness.
Right. I think there's some of that. I mean, I think there's different
It's nice. It's ideal.
Like if I, called you some terrible name and like, get out of here and left, and then you just came back.
A mother scratching booger flicker.
Yeah. And then you came back the next week and we're just doing the podcast again. Yeah. I think there needs to be some resolution to that.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be nice.
But I think like,
what if you say, hey, about what you called me, I didn't like it. And I said, well, you're acting like one, and we're just at an impasse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then neither one of us really has a humility stance, right? I mean, it seems like the tenderheartedness that is challenged to us before you hit the forgiveness.
But so then you bring it up, hey, you called me that.
You really hurt me. Well, except it would be the other way around, because I think I was the one saying.
And I say, look, I was having a rough day. I didn't mean it. But what if that's not enough for you? Like,
well, I can't.
But see, this is what I'm saying. We're moving in a resolute, but the full resolve, like maybe we have different definitions of resolve.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I can have a longing for something from you, and that's fine. But when I say, Andy, you have to do this to be okay.
Yeah.
No, I think I can say I have a boundary. So if I offer how you hurt me and you mock me more about it, then probably it's not safe for me to be in a relationship with you unless God has called me to take on that suffering in order to care for you.
Unsafe is an interesting thing to think through.
Right.
Like what do we mean? That's become a very popular and now a very contested phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Like what, because if, as you know, in our culture, all of a sudden everybody's unsafe all the time when you don't want to be around something.
Yeah. Well, I think in the Christian world, and at least a good boundary is, does this person consistently and intentionally join the enemy in attacking me?
Yeah.
Then I probably should have a boundary.
Yeah.
Do they sometimes, because they're human beings, sin against me, and then we're able to work it out, even though it's hard to be in relationship with them? Probably shouldn't be running away from them.
Yeah. Now say the resolution differences, like maybe say that, okay, you insulted me. Mm-hmm. And I said, and I'm a little bit, I kind of skirt the issue by going, oh, dude, I was having such a rough day, and you're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I don't look at you and say, wow, Eric, that's so true.
Yeah.
I looked right across the table at a man who has done nothing but love and care for me, and I chose words that were like daggers.
Yeah.
And I used them against you, and I didn't even care, and I walked out, and I actually really am a terrible human being, and I can't believe God would accept someone like me.
You're making me feel awkward right now.
Yeah. And I'm like looking right at you doing this. You're like, could you ever find it in your heart to forgive someone such as me? In fact, Eric, I'm going to say 5 times as many words of affirmation, and I'm going to swear to you, and I'm going to swear on an oath that I will never do that again to you. And not only will I never do that again,
wait.
I will become the opposite of your mother and father, and I will affirm you deeply in exactly the ways you're hoping for the rest of our lives together. And if I fail, Eric, you deserve to write an article about me exposing all of my shame. And okay, that's what you were hoping for. But all I give you is, I was having a bad day. I probably shouldn't have said that.
Well, okay. So I wasn't hoping for the landing of the plane on there. But I think, so that's where philosophically I think if I'm in a tender-hearted place and I say that hurt, and you say, here's what's going on with me, and then I can say, oh, so tell me more about what your rough day, like what was going on with you. And maybe we never get to the like you giving me what I long for, because forgiveness is me saying, no, what's happening in your life is more important than me getting exactly what I want. And I think that's what forgiveness really looks like in relationship where we have some kind of trust. And I think that's key. Like trust is important.
Yeah. What do you do when you don't have it? How does that work?
Well, I think it's 2 different kinds of trust. So like if I'm in danger, I can forgive you, but I don't think I need to be in relationship with you where you don't
have to say, come over to my house tomorrow and let me tell you about my feelings.
Yeah. But if you just tend to lie to me, or you are not always trustworthy just in the relationship, I may need to choose to be vulnerable and just repeatedly be wounded, 70 times 7, as Jesus might say, in order that I can show you what true Christ-likeness is and forgiveness, and invite you to be honest. So it doesn't mean I don't say, hey, you weren't honest. It makes it hard to trust you. I'm going to trust you, but it makes it hard.
Yeah.
And I'll risk it with you again. And, there seems to be like, if you're just like, I don't really care, like, again, if you're like, I don't care, whatever, then I'm like, all right, well, maybe there's a boundary here, and I forgive you, but I don't think probably it's productive.
So, and this does remind me of the 70 times 7 conversation where Peter asked Jesus, how many times? Up to 7? And Jesus says 70 times 7, which effectively is maybe means like, don't put a number on it, never
Yeah.
stop. And that's a little bit oblique for Jesus to say that. Like it doesn't clear it up, right? And I think he didn't mean to give him an exact number. It almost feels to me as if he's saying wrong question,
Right.
and then he goes on to tell a story of a unmerciful servant
Right.
who's upon whom God has had, or his master has had,
Mercy.
massive mercy, and he won't offer it to somebody else. So what he really reflects Peter to think about is, I want you to think about how much mercy you require. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And the question you're asking will be illuminated when you ponder that.
Right. And it seems like there's this, and maybe here I'll show my theological ignorance, but it seems to me like Jesus spends a lot of time building structures for us to understand the mercy of God and to think through the practice. And Paul says, hey, if you don't work, you don't eat. Because Paul's saying, okay, we're taking all these ways of being and we're taking God's mercy, and he's even inviting us into a lot of that. But at the same time, he's like, well, but we have to have structure. And so he's kind of holding the tension of, we have to be, honest and direct with people, and we have to be we have to have boundaries.
It does feel like Jesus' ministry, just to note here, was that the disciples and Paul don't do it the way Jesus did.
Right.
Exactly. They're not doing Sermon on the Mount style teachings.
No, they aren't, or at least they're not telling us about them.
No, and they're far more, in a way, pragmatic. And I think my theological reflection on that would be, Jesus was the Son of God exhibiting who he was.
Mm-hmm.
The disciples, not
Right.
that. Paul, not that. They are fellow humans helping humans trust in Jesus. That does come across differently.
Yes, and I think Jesus, surprise, surprise, is very Jewish, very much seeing himself as the completer of the law and not an abolisher of it. And so he's restructuring and refocusing and
recasting
and inviting people to step back into its intention.
Yeah.
At the same time saying he is the originator of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have,
I mean, we just used that unmerciful servant last week.
yeah.
But in our talk last week about mercy, and the week that'll probably have happened just before this podcast comes out, which will be on being pure in heart, it's just so evident that Jesus considers his teaching to be a continuation of what they already had in the law and the Old Testament.
Yeah. So I think just as like to think about Jesus and forgiveness, and how I think stepped into forgiveness more as I've gotten older, that's been helpful for me, is that I think Jesus, when I read the Gospels, really emphasized just the dirt and of being human. And so when I think about people I have to forgive, I think, they had a day, and that day meant they drove in traffic.
Yeah.
They had all these set of interactions, maybe, I'm not trying to be funny here, and maybe they're constipated, or maybe they're thinking about their health, and maybe their kid was screaming all day.
Right.
There's all these human broken pieces that you are just constantly being bombarded with and engaging and feeling and experiencing. It's not like they're just a disembodied, brain floating around that you got to forgive. It's a human being with so much complexity.
And they've had a day and a week and a year and a life.
Right. And a story. And so if I can hold that dignity, it's so much easier for me to forgive them and be honest that it's painful maybe at times to be in a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
And then sometimes what's so painful about being in relationship with them has been, it's to some degree something they were born into and they don't necessarily want to be that difficult.
Right.
right? Like, I don't want to be the versions of difficult that I am. I usually, I'm grappling with how I think and feel and operate that comes out of my story. And we're quite complex, and it's very difficult to stop being you. Mm-hmm. And some might say impossible. And so if you can know that about yourself, you can assume that's true for another, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just like I've kind of done a deep dive into personality theory of recent, and what's interesting is within like personality genetics and all that, basically once you hit your mid-30s, whatever your personality is, it's established, and it's going to stay pretty consistent because we need it to survive, right? Whereas from 0 to 30, you're still in a flux. Yeah. How outgoing you're going to be, how assertive you're going to be, how you experience emotion, and all those kinds of different things are still going to be adjusting.
Yeah.
And forming, and you're going to face crisis, and that's going to change it, and all that kind of stuff.
And at some point, you need to lock in, because as you age, it's actually going to disintegrate.
Yes, exactly. And so the point being on all of that is that, like, you're right. Like, we're stuck. We've formed a personality, and sometimes we're like, like I don't even like this part of me. Like I don't, but I don't know how. It's like I can't just go to therapy and have it changed.
And I think our culture got very hopeful that could happen, and I think is becoming a little skeptical now.
Right.
That just go to therapy can fix it.
Yeah.
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 Not that you shouldn't go to therapy, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of like, I think Christianity says yes, you are that way, and how do you hold that with dignity and begin to understand how it impacts the world around you? Yeah. Because that knowledge will help you care for people. Mm-hmm. And make you a better like forgiver of people. Yeah. I hope.
So say you're there a little bit and you go, you know what, I actually do see myself as somebody who's kind of hard to forgive.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. And so there's these people that,
or you've done things you're really ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see it, and maybe you're doing your best to be honest about that. And so you got other people that have done these things to you, and it's complicated. Yeah. Because you're trying to figure out, okay, like, I don't want to just be this vengeful, vindictive. I want to forgive. Jesus tells me to. I'm trying to follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. And when do you know you have done it?
When you've been forgiven, or
when you've extended it, or does that? I'm not sure that's a good question, but I think that's on our minds.
I think it's a great question. I think because the cross is the ultimate act of God's kenotic mercy, the outpouring of it, and it goes forward in forgiveness. The Christian life is standing at the edge of a cliff. Yeah. And where Jesus is like next to us saying, all right, we got to jump. Yeah. And we're going to forgive this person. It's a big risk. You could get hurt. Yeah. God may not show up the way, like I may not even show up the way you want me to in this. But for the kingdom to go forward and for you to grow in Christ's likeness, become like me, we got to jump. And I think jumping often looks like, okay, well, what would the humble Jesus do here? Yeah. And I think the humble Jesus, we're just talking about.
And he critiques people. And he tells people, this is what you'd have to do to enter my kingdom, and they're not always happy with it. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that is like when you see unforgiveness, you have to confront it. But to do that, you got to learn to be a person who forgives. Mm-hmm. Because unforgiveness comes out as anger and slander. And I mean, ultimately, the enemy offers us a whole set of other things to deal with life, because forgiveness is the living water, and we need it, and we are called to give it, and it's going to heal us, but we don't want it. I have a question for you, since you just threw it at me. and we'll make it into the news.
Oh.
Because the Southern Baptists and the Gospel Coalition of recent have been dealing with people who are somewhat, let's just say that they've taken advantage of people.
Sure.
And I don't know them.
Yeah.
But I've read some of the stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
And I think, I personally have a hard time. You haven't offended me, but I can't forgive you for what you've done. Like, I think you're despicable. And very judgmental.
Yeah.
And so you could do some really harmful things to me, and I can forgive you.
Yeah.
But it seems that sometimes there's people who are...
When there's distance?
There's distance, and they're propped up as people who are important. They're supposed to take care of people, protect people, lead people, and they're taking advantage of them. And they're followers of Jesus. It's actually harder for me to forgive them. Like, I'll put it out here. It's easier for me to forgive Donald Trump and Biden for whatever whatever crazy they do as president than it is for me to look at Christian leaders who have taken advantage of people in really evil ways and forgive them for it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, my first thought is I have a feeling that's a little bit tied to your, for lack of a better word, like what you idolize a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
And
psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Well, so because I think there are people who might be listening who would be like, no, I'm way more offended at the politician. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably means that you put a lot of hope in the nation state.
Yeah.
To provide
that other person
the good life.
Yeah.
And so when the nation state and the figurehead is offensive to you, it's going to be really hard to forgive.
Right.
And I think for you put a lot of stock in Christian
I expect
leaders.
A lot from Christian leaders.
And it's interesting because you said, like, you would do that for me. Well, I'm in some people's world, I am that leader. And when I let them down, it is that profound.
Sure.
But I'm not propped up as high. But I think in your...
Well, when it's serial too. But.
Yeah, no. And I'm not trying to minimize. This is my starting point, not minimize, because I'm with you on... I've got more to say. But
good.
I know you and your family, and
sure,
like getting, having connection to prominent people is important. Like the Preston Sprinkles, and you just quoted Larry Crabb, and
sure.
Your parents studied under. So those kind of people and their influence in your life and your connection to them is very important to you.
Sure.
So I think when someone like that is offensive, it's doubly so.
Yeah, I think I really have a hard time. Like you're on the team.
Yeah. And I think if somebody just doesn't really have as much care about the team, they're not gonna. They'll be like, another Southern Baptist went off the rails.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you feel about politicians. You're like,
right.
Because you don't put as much stock. So I think if you put a lot of stock into something, it becomes a little elevated.
Sure.
And the offense grows. So, like, if somebody came to the village and they were like, I've never found a church before that I liked, and they all hurt me until now. You are that now.
Yeah,
you are the Donald Trump. You are the leader of the Southern Baptist Convention. And I'm telling you, when you let them down,
I agree. And
they will be
for a long time.
Really hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first part. The second part of what I was going to say was Jesus, though, of course, like he does have hard words for religious leaders, especially almost. If you read the Gospels, outside of little moments where he has things to say about Herod, you would almost think he is entirely critical of them. And like I'm saying, I mean, there's little windows. Nicodemus gets a sermon on being born again, but it comes across as if like they are his enemy.
Yeah,
and I believe it's because of their high calling, and I think he is calling them to back and to renewal, but they,
Sure.
because of what they know and because they claim to know God and represent God to people, he does take that really seriously. So affirming in you that there is something to that.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And then, I think you also just know a lot about their world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
And that the more we are acquainted with the world
Sure.
and how it works,
like,
and
and
how
I
it
think
ought to be.
Some of it is also the nature of the sin. So, like, honestly, even just let's say in our relationship,
Yeah.
if you had like a serial set of affairs
Yeah.
versus you embezzled money at Mission Church, right? I mean, forgiving you for the embezzlement, like, and being in relationship with you, I could do that.
And
the other one, I mean, I would want to do the other one, but I would be really like, how, like, what? Because I think because it gets down to the core of humans and taking advantage of them and all of that in a different.
And I could imagine, though, think about this, that there's like, say at our church, there was a bankrolling donor, and they had looked at me and they had said, I love what this church is doing, and I trust you.
Here's $1 million.
And regularly,
Mm-hmm.
and they find out I'm embezzling.
Oh yeah, they're going to feel betrayed.
Betrayed because I trusted you in this area.
Yeah.
Now, that same person might find out I had the affairs and say, well, that's not good.
Oh, I hear you.
But
Yeah.
you have a weakness. Like, they might be more, and see, your offense, Eric, like, I know, like, you care about relationships and healthy relationships. And
Sure.
so I think your offense would like land harder on that. Whereas if somebody really cared about
that's
financial stewardship and that was like
true.
a core anchor of our relationship.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting at like the area of, if the area of connection for us is this thing,
Right.
and the betrayal is in that very thing.
Then I would agree with you. I think there's some element of that. I also think just distance, and that I don't know them.
Yeah.
And they're leaders, and I think, well, that's despicable.
Whereas if you sat in meetings with them all the time,
Yeah.
and you'd also heard them and related to them in ways,
Yeah.
and if the area in which they stumbled is one that you were like,
Right.
I know they've wrestled with this and they've tried and they just failed.
And
like,
maybe I might, like, even it gets more complicated because there are systems that are promoting it.
Yeah,
So now
yeah.
I'm not just angry at them. I'm angry at the whole system.
Yes.
Down with it. It needs
Yes.
to crumble.
yes.
Like, I want to exercise justice
Uh-huh.
now. I want to swing the sword.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just thinking about that because forgiveness, there are consequences. And I think it's interesting that there are things that the atonement, the yearly atonement sacrifice, does not pay the price for.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Murder does not get covered by that.
Mm-hmm.
Murder has a consequence. It's death.
Yeah. Well, and the yearly atonement didn't get rid of the natural consequences.
Right.
It didn't, you didn't have like blood guilt before God, say,
Right.
but you still had to, I could imagine, when you walked by with your big knife, people would go, and it's not like the whole community just went, yeah, you're fine. Like you carry those, you might not be entrusted with the same, you might not be made a judge over your tribe ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
When you tell this, since we're going on side notes, when you said that, there was this time, it must have been 10 years ago, driving south on Craycroft towards Speedway, and just cars are backed up. And then I look to the side, and there's this like beefy guy with like, a wife beater shirt on, but really beefy, really muscular. Looks like he lives in the gym, carrying a gigantic shovel with a ski mask on.
Yes.
Just walking down the and that would be the guy with the big blade. I'm like, this is not good. Like, we're not.
We had a big guy, bunch of tattoos, wearing a wife beater style tank top, holding a bat, standing at our gate. We look out the window on a early morning, and we're like, or what is like this? We're about to get beat down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, just like nobody answered the door. We're not. And he's just standing out there. He's kind of fidgeting around. He looks kind of anxious, and we're like, this guy's he's gonna hit us with this bat. You know, he's gonna break our window. Anyway, he went down to the neighbor's house. Like, oh gosh! And then we called the neighbor. You know, like, hey, watch out. So the neighbor goes out there, and it turns out the guy is rolling a bike along, and is just looking for a wrench to fix his tire. He is also holding a bat and looking really anxious. But so then, anyway, good example of where it's like, I'm still weary of people who are holding bats and standing in front of my door. Like, and so
they may just be looking for a wrench, but
yeah. So if in a relationship you have hit somebody with a bat, forgiveness probably doesn't mean they're going to be like, well, I also am fine with you swinging bats in my direction.
Yeah. Or carrying a bat in my presence.
It doesn't mean that goes away. Yeah. And I think part of being the forgiven person is saying, yeah, I get it. Like, that's reasonable. It's like, if somebody comes in your community and they have a history of, they've been an embezzler, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they come into your community, they say, hey, I've been an embezzler. And you say, yeah, okay, well, you're not going to hold any rolls here. You're not going to have access to the money. If they go, what? Then I think, they don't get it. But if they go, oh, of course not, you'd be I would, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Then I go, okay, they get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think that's a beauty of not just being the forgiver. It's a beauty to be forgiven.
Yeah. And to be like, this isn't going to be held against me, but also it's real in my story. Yeah. And it's not.
Well, I think forgiveness is the offensive weapon of the kingdom of God in that it restores dignity. Even if there are consequences. Yeah. It still restores dignity. The humanity.
Yeah.
And when you don't forgive, you take humanity away.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a podcast, Eric.
Yeah, that's a wrap, man. Thank you so much for doing forgiveness.
Good idea.
I've been doing a little bit better. I send you now. I've been trying to send you subjects a day before at least, and
I've been forgiving you of not doing that for years, and it's amazing to see this change. Yeah,
I feel so much more human now.
Wow. No, it was cool last night. I was like, wow, sweet. Eric's on top of it this week. So, yeah, good work. And okay, if you have other such questions, you can send them our way. We will take some breaks over the summer, but still send us.
I'll do some
your
replays.
Questions. We'll do some replays. We're not there yet.
No.
But in your podcast app, faithoverbreakfast@gmail.com. Talk to Eric personally. Email Andy. Those are ways you can ask a question.
Awesome. You've been listening to Faith Over Breakfast with Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. Please share us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.